Okay, well, welcome everyone to our July demo day. I will get us started here. Let me share my screen. So first, I'll be demoing an upcoming change. This is not released into production yet, where we've made some adjustments to point of sale to allow updates of quantities of items in the cart from the search results and also from the product detail. So this is controlled through an MRK control setting. So in MRK control, in the POS parts cart, there's a new option for allow quantity update from search and detail. So when that is enabled and you are in point of sale, if you go in and start to create an order or a quote, you have to type your part number correctly. All right, so when you add items to the cart, now you'll have the option to update from the search results or from the part detail. So if I wanted to change the quantity of that item to 4, I can update it. It'll update in the cart. And then there's a couple interesting nuance cases. So we do allow an item to be in the cart more than once in some scenarios. That's controlled through MRK control as well. There's an option in here to force the same part number increment. So if that were toggled and you had an item in the cart where you had modified the price, so I'm just going to change the price of that item to be $40. So if that were enabled, this would still say update. But in this case, the item in the search results has a different price than the item that's in the cart. So it gives me the option to add it. So now there's two instances of that part in the cart, but at different prices. So now when we click our update, we get a warning that there are multiple instances. And then we have the option to edit those quantities in the cart. There's also a checkbox here for don't show this warning again. So if I check that, that changes a user setting behind the scenes. We can go take a quick peek at it, but we'll check that and then we'll say open cart. And now we can adjust the individual quantities that are at different prices. And then now that we've checked that toggle, if we go in again, it won't give us the warning. So it's sort of a training event that first time. And then if you don't want to see that anymore, you can uncheck that. Additionally, you can delete the item from your cart from search results or part detail. It does warn you that all instances of the part will be removed. And let's try to show one other quick detail here. So if we once again adjust the price so that we can have more than one line item of the same part, when you hover over the quantity, it's going to tell you the total quantity and how many line items that represents. Let's show, there's one other interesting piece in quotes. So in quotes, we have enabled the related parts and part option groups. So when you are dealing with a part that has related parts and some of those are required, there's some different functionality. So if we add this part to the cart, it's adding parts automatically that are required and also warning us that that those items have been added. So in that case, we don't allow it to be removed. So the delete trash can icon is there, but it tells us that it's required and cannot be removed. But we can still update that quantity. All right, again, that's behind a toggle. So we wanted to maintain the existing functionality. If someone doesn't want to see the update functionality, we just don't enable that toggle and then it reverts the previous behavior. Any questions on these changes? All right, so we will go into our next section here. Let's show the host side of this first. So this we are calling forms def. So in the desktop application, there is a formsdef.e now. And this allows us to define forms that can be dynamically displayed on the web. So our initial use case for this is to enable scan functionality to be built out more quickly. So in forms.def.e, I can list the forms that have been defined. I'm going to go into one called move pallet to stock. So in here, you select the file that you want the operation or the web form to modify, and then you can choose the fields that you want to display. You can optionally define sections. I'll go into an example with a section in a moment. You can change the label. So in the TT file, which is another new piece of functionality that's coming out, this field is called tote ID, but if on the web I want it to show as pallet ID, I have that flexibility here. You can define that a field is read-only. You can also hide it. So if you need it to be available for post-back or for validation so that it exists in the record that we're passing back and forth, we can expose it, but make it hidden. You can also define default values. So in this case, I'll show this form in a moment, but it has a to location and we want it to be a default value of stock. And then there's also a validate column. So if this is checked, then anytime a user enters data into that field, we make a validate call back to the host so that we can update the data that's being fed back to the web. And we could also introduce any kind of custom validation logic that we're interested in. Let me go into another form here to show the sections. So in the section example, this one is set up to modify the cust record. And we've defined two sections, custom info and address details, and we can have the various fields show up in different sections. So we'll show what that looks like on the web. I should have pointed out, this is only being exposed for the scan module at the moment, but we envision the ability to add these custom forms in other sections of the website as well. So let's get out of this and we'll log into Rover Web. So again, these have been enabled in the scan module. So you'll see these items showing up here. These are all dynamic forms that have been defined. So we were first looking at that move pallet to stock. So I click on move pallet to stock. Here's the form that has been generated based on that definition in forms.def.e. Just go take another quick look at that to compare. So here's the fields that have been defined. You can see that pallet label is displayed as expected, and there's a validate call enabled on tote ID. So if I type in a tote ID and I tab off that field, you can see it made a call back to the host, and it pulled in the file name, the record ID, and the location. And we had defined a default value for to location of stock, but I could override that if I want. We'll make it location 1 and we'll submit that. And it looks like we've got a little bug at the moment where it's giving me this focus is not a function. Please excuse that. So then we get a result successfully submitted. And then if we went back into tote 1, we can see our, oh, we got another error.
Yeah,
so
that
our location was
the to location, the default. I just fixed that. It just hasn't had a chance to be pushed up, but the to location will readjust to the default again once you submit.
All right, thank you, Shoshana. Okay, so that's an example of how the form stuff looks. We'll go take a quick peek at that one that defined the sections just so you can see how that works. So this, again, we had defined sections of custom info and address details, so you can break the fields up that you've defined into sections. And those are also collapsible. So if you wanted, you can collapse those sections down. So we're pretty excited about this. I think it will allow us to build out rapid functionality in the scan section of the site without needing to make code changes for the web, and just also opens it up for many different scan functions that can affect different files, and they can easily be built out. Any questions on this? All right, so we are also actively working on AP and AR updates to the accounting module. They're not quite ready to show, but we expect that will happen definitely by next demo day. But we do have some updates to some of our base components that are shared with throughout the system that we're updating as part of our AP and AR work. So I'm going to hand it over to Christian, and he'll show a piece of that. Christian, it's all yours.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so one of the updates that we made to some of our base components is adding lookup functionality. So as you can see in these 3 fields, there's now a lookup icon. So once you click this, it will take in all the lookup tables that are defined in fdic.e. And if there's multiple, it'll allow you to select different ones. And one thing we've added is the ability to type in a query. So just search by name. I'll just do Chris. And it's able to filter on that lookup itself. And so you can select it, and then it'll store that value. And so this is all driven based off what's in fdic.e. So lookups that have this question mark on the value, that will pop up that dialog for those. And the ones without it, that'll just run and perform that lookup by itself. There is one caveat, though, that we don't currently support any lookup with program name, mainly because there could be follow-up questions that we just can't interact with it in the web. So those are filtered out. So only ones without program name are currently supported. Yeah, that one was a pretty quick update, but that'll be available for any input that supports the reference file defined in the fdict. Yeah, it should be available relatively soon, and definitely as part of the AR and AP updates.
All right. Thanks, Christian. And now we'll hand it over to Alex, who will show another base component that we're updating as part of that work.
Righty. Yeah, so I know we're not showing accounting, but a lot of these changes that are coming up were kind of in support of accounting and after some design discussions. But we do have these grids in some places that are editable, and they're reused elsewhere. So in inventory we also have it. But we wanted to add some new features here to allow better visualization and maintenance of the data in certain contexts. And so this won't necessarily be everywhere, because in some places on some records, the order of the items on this list may be crucial and not editable. But in certain cases, the order might not matter, and for visual purposes or something, you may want to be able to move an item around. You might want to sort them. You might even want to filter what you're looking at if you've got a very large list. So we're going to add support for that. And then you also see right now it kind of displays like it normally would in a report grid that's just showing you data, but now these are still editable. So you can click the little pencil icon to bring up the edit for this. And so that lets you also make changes. And then if you accidentally made a typo, you changing the wrong line, you can undo it. We've got some hotkeys and other support to help you kind of move through this more quickly. So if you double click, it'll open up the row in edit mode. You can type, and then if you accidentally, editing the wrong row, you can hit escape and it will exit and undo your changes. Or if you wanted to keep the changes, you can hit the enter key and it'll change it. And see, we've already got it sorted, so it moved it down to the bottom to stay in line with that sort. And likewise, if you want to add a new row, it's going to open up already in edit mode and ready to go. So you can even start typing right away. You don't even have to click anything. So hopefully this will kind of help provide some better, smoother interactions, a little more expected interaction with the grid, while also keeping things looking a little bit cleaner than a bunch of big boxy fields when you're not updating data. And so these are all also optional. So in the future, if you want it to be sortable but not filterable, we can do that. If you want to be able to rearrange things by drag and drop, you can do that. If you don't, we're going to be able to turn that off. So this will all be very flexible, so that it should apply to all contexts and bring a more unified experience.
Right. Great. Thanks, Alex. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, if not, thank you for attending.